because publishers sometimes are a little bit naughty. Now, maybe they're naughty because they're kind of bad, or maybe they just make a mistake and they have a plan where the business bigwigs think, oh cool, we'll sell this season pass, but the developers are internally screaming, thinking, guys, we can't actually
Yeah, there's
do
a lot
that.
of
The problem,
miscommunication
though, is,
between developers and publishers.
we
Happens
get
all the time.
burned. And guess who also gets burned?
Yes.
Steam, the actual platform. Well, it's game designed. They want to incentivize behaviors that are in their best interest. And that means, yeah, things that mean that customers feel comfortable purchasing, but it also means developers and publishers acting right.
I'm glad Valve's giving DLC a definitive definition on their platform. When you normalize the behavior, then it makes it easier to manipulate people and sell it in the future. And that's why it's a bad business practice that shouldn't happen. Valve is tired of publishers not taking their obligations seriously. Okay, kind of a vague description you got there, bud, but I'll bite.
I mean, he clickbaiting, you know.
Yeah, it's YouTube. Well, I mean, I was reading the description at that point. Usually they'll clickbait in the title, but they'll give a little more context in the description. But he clickbaited the description too. He just left it very vague. But that's fine. We'll
I mean, you should see his list of sources in the description.
Yeah, I'm seeing. Well, first I gotta scroll down past his sponsorship. A lot of sources. A lot of them come straight from the Steam store, Kotaku, Bethesda's help page, PC Gamer. Yeah, they all seem credible. All right, let's hear how we're putting game publishers on notice.
Today, this is going to be a great video, right? Because publishers sometimes are a little bit naughty. Now, maybe they're naughty because they're kind of bad, or maybe they just make a mistake and they have a plan where the business bigwigs think, oh cool, we'll sell this season pass, but the developers are internally screaming, thinking, guys, we can't actually
Yeah, there's
do
a lot
that.
of
The problem,
miscommunication
though, is, that means
between
that
developers and
customers,
publishers.
we
Happens
get
all the time.
burned. And guess who also gets burned?
Yes, we get caught in the
Mr.
crossfire.
Game. Because if you're running Steam and via incompetence or malice, your devs and publishers are messing on your customers, well, guess what? Now that's your problem. So this is very much a Steam consumer protection story, and it's one that is very Valve, because they've not went and hired a small army, right, of enforcers who are going to be patrolling Steam. No. Valve are a games design company, right? Now, the thing is, Steam, the actual platform, well, it's game designed. They want to incentivize behaviors that are in their best interest. And that means, yeah, things that mean that customers feel comfortable purchasing, but it also means developers and publishers acting right. So let's get into this. Today's story is all about selling an idea, selling a promise of future content and how it goes wrong. What's cool though, right, is the last few times we've covered Steam stories, especially policy ones, it's Valve being forced by some sort of outside influence. As an example, there were the terms of service changes, which basically were to try to comply with a Californian law. There was all of the stuff with the big class action lawsuits, and that was all Valve responding to external stuff. But here, this is Valve designing their own game, changing the rules, and it's all about the battle passes. Now, this was first spotted by
Valve telling you
Janick,
what's up,
who is
bitches.
the Steam DB guy, who does awesome work over there. So what they've done is they've changed their policies on how season passes work. And for the sake of simplicity, so that we all understand what Valve actually means, here is how Valve defines them. A pack of current and future content, brackets DLC, that customers can buy with a single purchase.
Yes, that's what DLC is.
Note
Thank
here
you, Valve.
is that battle passes, where you've got to unlock rewards through gameplay, and like individual DLCs, those don't actually count here. What counts is when you buy a season pass, right? A whole package of things that is purchased before all those things release. And what's really cool is that we have got the full policy document, all of Valve's demands and requirements that developers and publishers have got to meet. And on face value, this absolutely looks like a humongous win for consumer rights. But as always, it gets far more interesting when we dive into the details, and that's possible because of today's sponsor, who keep me protected online. So here's the deal. Data brokers exist. They harvest our data any way that they can, and then they sell it. And that means we get robocalls, we get spam, and even worse, security vulnerabilities, especially the likes of social engineering. And when big corporate
we don't skip ads on
happen,
content we steal.
That data often ends up with the brokers. And that's where Incognito.com/belly their news is a superpower, and it is so simple. We've actually got the legal right to have our data taken down. But that takes hours, and there's nothing stopping that data from being recollected. So what Incogni does is it
And
scans
it's
the
not,
brokers,
like,
it
the worst
automatically
service.
sends takedown requests, it adds you to suppression lists, and best of all, it constantly rescans
be
to keep your data
betterhelp.com.
down. So here's my Incogni dashboard. You can see 114 sent, 8 in progress, 106 completed, and I'm on 21 suppression lists. And that means those brokers will not recollect my
that's a
info.
powerful card.
And you can add up to 3 emails and home addresses as well. And the upshot is simple.
Thank you for
Your
the
data
points.
not being spread around without your knowledge or your consent. And I've actually not had a single robocall since I started with them. Incogni means you can
that's
actually
a
benefit from the laws
it's a
that
bold
actually
claim
exist
right
to
there.
protect you, but are normally
That it can
completely
stop all
unusable.
robocalls?
And you can
Not a
get
single one?
60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/value.
I shouldn't have
Let's
to
kick things
pay
off with the
for
customer
a subscription to stop
so Valve
robocalls.
provide
The government
how
should put
these
a
products should
crackdown
appear
on
on the
this
Steam
shit.
platform, sort of in the same way as Advanced Access, where Advanced Access was a thing, it was a gray area, and then Valve said, hang on a second, we should actually have a clear label and a clear system so that people know what's
that's
going
where
on. So from now
early
on,
access games became a thing.
before the purchase of a season pass, products must clearly detail these things: a complete list of all DLC included in the pass, so a listing for each of the 4 DLCs that are included. There must be a basic description of the content included in each pass. Valve says, and by the way, I'm reading their policy document here. For example, the first content release might be the Glitterlands expansion, new area to explore, 2 new weapons, and new enemies.
And they even give an
Valve's
example.
document goes on to say it's not required for DLC to have a final name at the launch of the season pass.
You just
They
need to say
that
what it's going to be,
information
not what's
about
going to
the
be
content
called.
in the DLC doesn't need to be detailed, so
You just need to
can
say
just
it's
say as a
coming.
developer,
This
new
will
weapons,
happen.
or 2 new weapons, or new zone. That is acceptable. You don't have to list the specific, like, itemized things. Now, they also say, and this is where it gets big, expected release date for each DLC, quarter and year, i.e. January to March 2025, or season/year.
Oh, you
is
gotta have a time
acceptable.
frame.
Of course, a date that's more precise is also fine. As an example, just any specific date in the year. And then there's a bit that I think is huge, right? A product must have at least one of its constituent DLCs actually released whenever it is offered.
Most of them do
so
now,
that
anyway.
means that a season
I mean,
pass cannot be sold in
should.
such a way that if you buy the season pass, that's it. Right, there's no content right now. All that you've done is pre-ordered a bunch of future DLCs. That's actually not going to be allowed. Now, that being said, pre-orders of a deluxe edition of a game do get their own specific carving out in the rules. So obviously Valve aren't going to publishers and saying, hey guys, no more deluxe editions, because that would lose all of the money, right? So we'll have to treat that as a separate thing, but there's an other rule that is massive for us as gamers, as customers. Steam are codifying that if any listed DLC is cancelled, Valve will mandate refunds for the comparative value of
Okay,
the
so if you
cancelled
cancel a DLC, then
to
you have to refund the
customers.
people who
Now,
pre-ordered
this
it.
is really good
Which,
because, look,
is what should happen.
generally, there would be
Or
some
pre-orders
form
just shouldn't be
of
a thing.
refund if
You
a
should have
plan
to buy it
changed
when it comes out.
substantially. But the thing that actually matters is, can you trust that refund? Is it backed up by Valve's own rules? Here, it is going to be backed up by those rules, and that matters. Now what we can do is take a look at some recent video games to see who passes these rules and who fails. The devil is always in the details. So, Star Wars Outlaws just came out, and it does actually pass. The reason why is they have clear descriptions of the expected dates, there are clear expectations for the content, and there's a full list of everything that you get. Then we've got Space Marine 2. It also passes the new test. Again, it's got all of the detail, even though they are just describing the cosmetic pack contents in generic terms. But then we've got Tekken 8. It actually fails the test. It violates Valve's rules. Now, Tekken 8 came under a hell of a lot of criticism from fans because
of the
what is
way that
actually
they
in its season pass.
Yeah.
Now, actually, that's not why they failed the test here. Obviously, you're allowed to sell a season pass that's shit as long as it complies with the rules. But what they don't comply with is that while there is detail of the content available that fits Valve standards, there's no time frame, right? No time frame for delivery, and Valve are not letting developers sell undated promises in their store anymore. Then we've got Stalker 2, which sadly fails on all counts here, actually. The only thing that they describe whenever you purchase the Ultimate Edition is, quote, Season Pass, guaranteeing 2 additional expansions and any future DLC. Now, of course, detail-wise, Steam has left enough slack here so that as long as each DLC is labeled with new weapons, new enemies, new map, that would be acceptable. And that does mean that most developers are likely going to be fine on that front. And for the developers of Stalker 2, well, they basically just need to get their ducks in the row so that they are in compliance with this. Of course,
example, I guess.
All right.
So there was actually a huge Bethesda controversy, and I think the lawsuit is technically still going on because of the Creation Club.
Okay.
Because of the way that they marketed that as mini DLCs, and when they originally
Oh.
sold the season pass of their game, they said all future DLCs will be included for free, and so people are suing them right now for Creation Club because all season pass owners should be able to get that stuff. And I honestly agree with how minimal the content is. It probably should have been free for season pass owners.
I mean, from a legal standpoint, not sure how much of an argument they have there. I mean,
I'm not saying it's a good argument. I'm just saying it's like
it depends on
it's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't have an argument. It all comes down to the very specific wording, because when it comes to like contract disputes and stuff in court, the devil is in the details, and you must be specific. So they called it a DLC at any point in time in that contract, and just a DLC, and then they said all future DLC will be included, then you got a case. If they called it a mini DLC and not just DLC, then the argument could be, well, we didn't say mini DLC. That's a different kind of DLC. No, so
Yeah.
just like like if you got a sale on something like Cheez-Its, for instance. You got Cheez-Its at the grocery store going on sale, and it says all varieties. I've actually seen this happen in the store, and it's an argument they always lose. But they come to the counter with the big family size box of Cheez-Its, and they said, well, it said buy one, get one free, all varieties. Family size is it's a variety. And I'm like, no, it's a size. It's a different thing. All varieties means, regular Cheez-It, pepper jack Cheez-It, white cheddar cheese. Yeah, that's a different variety. This is still regular Cheez-It. It's just a different size. So changing the size does technically make it a different thing. But the devil's in the details. It's all going to be in the wording. And I mean it even if they go with the argument of, well, it's a mini DLC and not a DLC, not a regular DLC, there's still a good chance that they may win that case, because there's a good chance they get in front of a judge who doesn't play video games and doesn't understand this market, and they can't see the difference. They're like, I don't understand what the difference between a mini DLC and a DLC is. Just because it's a different... What do you mean, mini? Like, what's a mini DLC? It's a download. Is it because it's not a certain size download or something? Yeah, like they're not going to understand what the mini part means. So they'll have to basically argue for the mini part and why it makes it different. Whether or not that'll be successful is really going to be up to the judge. So I could see it going either way, but technically, they didn't say mini DLC. Then I can see how that's not included. It's a class action lawsuit. So even if... I don't see it winning personally, but even if it does win, the people involved in the suit aren't going to get much. Maybe some free Creation Club content. They'll settle outside of court more than likely if they think they're going to lose. The lawyers will be the ones getting paid, and all the consumers will just get some free Creation Club content. That's probably all that'll actually come from it. I don't know if it'll actually change how DLCs
I wonder
operate.
if they won the suit, if they would refund all of the season pass. That would be...
No.
Or offer a refund.
Probably not.
Be forced.
Probably not, because the argument is that these mini DLCs are included with the purchase of the season pass. So they'll probably change the wording on their season pass, or they'll apply it to whatever time frame that season pass was sold. They'll go through people's accounts to see all the people who purchased the season pass during that time frame, and then they'll just give them Creation Club content for free as a way to oblige by the contract that says, well, we're supposed to give you free DLC with your season pass. We're not supposed to give you money. So we're not going to give you money. We're going to give you free Creation Club content. Go download as much of it as you want. There you go. That's going to be what you get. And then it's only going to apply to people that bought that season pass during a certain time frame. Probably. if I had to take a guess on how that would be handled. I mean, if they settle outside of court, it can be whatever. But if a judge says you have to include it, you know, if a judge did side with them and they won, that would be what the judge says. Well, if it says that it's included, you have to give customers access to that. Boom. And that'll be the judge's decision. And then nobody gets any money back. The judge's ruling was that I have to give you Creation Club content. So that's what I'm giving you. Yeah. Give people the thing they paid for. I don't think that it'll be one of those cases that like changes the way the rules work, though. This is probably going to be like a one-off case. I don't think it's going to redefine what DLC is or how it can be sold. It probably will make future developers just be more careful in their wording, but I don't think, like, legally speaking, it's going to define what DLC is or do anything like that, no.
Well, I'm just saying, this is like, it feels like an effect of things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the same vein as that, and I'm glad Valve's giving DLC a definitive definition on their platform. I don't think like we'll legally get a definition for it, not for a while, because all the people making our laws and running our courts right now are old as dirt and don't know what video games are or how they work. They just think they're toys. They still treat video games like they're toys from the 80s. So it'll probably be another 10, 20 years before you actually see laws that reflect the digital age, because you have to wait for all those fucking boomers to die off, and then younger judges will come in that grew up with this technology and understand it, and they'll be like, oh, these rules got changed. Yeah, and then they'll start changing. But it'll be a while before that happens. I'm glad a company is deciding to make the rules themselves and go, well, I'm not going to wait for the law to catch up. This is how I want to run my platform. I don't know how that's going to affect them. It does just seem like the only real effect is going to be how... It looks like the real effect from it's going to be a marketing effect and not so much a developer effect. Like, they're probably still going to develop stuff the same way they've been developing stuff. They're just going to market it differently so that it meets that description. They'll rename it to something other than DLC. They'll call it a service game.
You actually have to include a piece of content when you purchase a season pass if it's not like when you're pre-ordering a game.
So this is what I'm hoping. So this is the good thing I'm hoping that'll come from that, is that pre-orders will stop, at least on Steam. And I'm hoping that this becomes like adopted in other storefronts, because I want pre-orders to fucking die. I agree with Steam here. You should get something when you pay for something. You should get it instantly, and you shouldn't be paying for a promise, basically, which is what you do when you're pre-ordering. You're paying for a promise. You don't always get what you promised. You can Google it and look it up. There are many examples of people pre-ordering something, and they were supposed to get one thing, and then they got something else. Yeah, that's bad. That's why you don't pre-order. So more than likely, what I'm hoping will happen is that pre-orders will die, and all those bonuses that you used to get as pre-orders, they'll now be purchase bonuses just for buying the DLC, just for buying the battle pass, just for buying the season pass, or whatever it is. Which is a good thing, because that's way better than pre-orders, because that entices people to buy your passes and support the longevity of your content. And you're rewarding them instantly for doing so, instead of getting them to pay for the promise of a future game and future content, all this stuff that may or may not come. So that's where I'm hoping it goes, because we're way past the point of pre-orders needing to exist. There's no reason they should, from a consumer standpoint, there is no reason a pre-order should exist on a non-physical good. Like, if you're pre-ordering a console or a collector's edition of something, like I did with Street Fighter, I pre-ordered Street Fighter 6 collector's edition because it came with 2 statues, which look awesome on my shelf, and it came with all this stuff. It was a big $250 package, but that had a limited stock and a limited number that were made, and if you didn't pre-order it, you probably wouldn't get it. That doesn't exist in the digital space. There is no selling out of a digital game. They can copy that game and send it out as a download infinitely. So there's no reason that you need to pre-order it. The consumer sees no benefit from a pre-order. That's why they have to bribe you to do it with pre-order bonuses or early access, which I can go into a rant on all by itself, because it's not really early. That's the launch date. People who didn't pre-order are getting late access. You guys are thinking about it backwards. But the reason they push pre-orders so fucking hard isn't because, they're trying to do something for you, the consumer, and get you some bonuses and get you on board so you can play it early. So that no, it's none of that. That's what it was with physical goods. They were trying to make sure you got a copy of the game. Now it's let's say that all right. Let's say you got a game coming out late February or beginning of March, but you start your pre-orders in December. Well, the thing is, the fiscal year for their shareholders ends in mid-February. So they're trying to sell the game during 2023's fiscal year, even though the game won't hit store shelves until the start of 2024's fiscal year. It's all just stuff to show their shareholders so that CEOs and stock prices can go up and CEOs and people like that can get their bonuses. That's why they push it so hard. That's who it's for. It's not for you, it's for them. And it's a practice that needs to die because it's deceptive as fuck, and I don't know how it's legal. I don't know how it's legal because that's what they're doing when you can pre-order a game during one fiscal year, and then not get your product till another fiscal year, so its launch date will show a different year than the date you bought it on. That's manipulative. Your financial reports are going to show that you made this much revenue in 2023, but you didn't sell that game in 2023. And then you're going to claim in 2024 that the game sold this many copies as part of your financial report in 2024, but you're going to be including you're going to be reporting copies sold. Well, pre-order copies are still copies. So you're reporting a percentage of those copies weren't sold during 2024. They were sold during 2023. But you're claiming them as part of your sales in 2024 because that's when the game launched and that's when it technically sold. They're basically double dipping on financial reports. I don't know how it's legal, and it needs to die. But thank you, Valve, for putting up some kind of gate between, or trying to fight back against that at least a little bit. But continue on. Bellular News. Not what I thought that name channel would be called.
On a personal level, I mean, I know that Stalker 2 has came out, it's had performance issues and all of that, but my god, very few games are developed in the, broader environment that Stalker 2 was developed in, so I'm absolutely going to cut those guys some slack.
Yeah, they developed Stalker 2 in the middle of an active war zone.
On top of release dates, there's a reason why most announcements have got the legalese of, quote,
bombs going off around them and shit.
To change, right, in the small print. So Valve are not going to be completely ruthless with developers here. They are giving developers flexibility to allow for delays and development problems because, Valve are also game developers. I'm pretty sure they understand that keeping to a development timetable is hard. They run in Valve time, so they take that into account, but they do have rules and punishment. So here it is. If developers cannot make the 3-month window that they set for their DLC, they are allowed to move that DLC to the next 3-month window. But if it's anything more than that, they can't do it in the Steam backend. They can't click a button. So
they can extend it once for another 90 days, and if it's going to be later than that,
they basically need to get a meeting with the principal and explain themselves. And if that DLC is delayed past the 3-month point, even if no customer has complained to them, then Valve will actually consider action. And of course, that is action that, will hurt the developer's bottom line. That means that there are clear consequences. Valve's framing to developers and publishers is clear. A season pass is a commitment to future releases, and it's one that they want as a contract. Here's a quote. If you aren't ready to clearly communicate about the content included in each DLC and when each DLC will be ready for launch, you shouldn't offer a season pass on Steam. So if a 6-month window for release isn't enough, Valve will actually consider that to be a breach of contract between developers, Valve, and customers, and as a punishment, they will actually take action. Here are Valve's punishments. The season pass may be removed from sale. They also say all unreleased content may be refunded, or customers may get the option of a refund for the whole pass. And the same will actually apply if the season pass hasn't released for 1 year as well. And the ultimate point here is that customers will not lose out because a developer cannot meet their promises. Of course, promises the developer has sold to a customer. That to a lot of developers will sting. It will feel harsh, but you know what? This industry has been damaged so much by commitments to players just being fast and loose and not being respected. And that's why games discussion and culture is such a flippin' mess these days. So let's talk about games that will fail this criteria. Redfall! Yeah, Redfall, remember that? That's a recent example where, because Microsoft shut down the development studio, there was simply no plan to make the Season Pass DLC. Now, obviously, Microsoft did offer refunds there, but it was initially unclear if that would be the case, as Microsoft framed that a make-good offer was being worked on, which, in that case, it's gotta be money, or I'm saying no. Now then there's 10 years ago, Assassin's Creed Unity. That saw Ubisoft have their release
Season Pass halted, free games offered to
sale
owners. Yeah.
because of the game's launch issues, which at the very least were pretty damn funny to watch. Now in that case, Ubisoft still did commit to releasing their DLC regardless, with all of the Season Pass owners getting that as a part of their purchase. Plus, everybody in the community actually got the first DLC, and then Season Pass holders got a free Ubisoft game to make up the cost. So that was them trying to navigate the situation. But obviously here, with Valve, well, a developer doesn't just get to say, take this instead. No, it's got to be what you promised, or else Gabe's giving people their money back. And speaking of development shit shows, we gotta talk about City Skylines 2.
That's what should happen.
City Skylines 2's expansion pass, Waterfronts, completely meets all the criteria for listing a Season Pass product on Steam, right? They have got clear descriptions of what the content is, actually far more detail than is even required, and they do have clearly marked dates for, the initial sale of it. As an example, right, the Bridges and Ports DLC was marked as releasing in Q2 of 2024. However, the astute among you may notice that it's actually Q4 of 2024 right now.
And that's still not out.
That expansion has not released. In fact, in February, to ensure wider game stability, it was updated to have a release window of Q2 2025, which I will say is what that developer should have done. Because look, if your foundations are absolutely shot through, destroyed, what business have you got building something on it? No, you got to fix the real problem first. But you can't have it both ways. And so in doing that, you should hand people their money back with a plan to earn it back later. And this actually means that what they've done in City Skylines 2 would land squarely within Steam's policy of being more than 12 months since the intended release date if it doesn't hit by then. Now, the reasons why the DLC is delayed is obviously that stuff that we've covered in a lot of detail here. And I think broadly everyone watching this video understands they've got to fix the real problem first. I mean, don't sell people stuff when the thing they've already got is shit. But the problem of a season pass is that many people have already paid for that DLC.
Yep.
And so if we take a look at Valve's rules, guess what?
You're basically
You've got to
pre-ordering
give
DLC
some
with
of
the
that
season
money
pass.
back.
That's
That's
the
going to
point.
sting. But guess what? It is goddamn right. And because Valve are the biggest marketplace in PC gaming, well, they are setting the terms of the market. They are drawing a red line about what is acceptable. A lot of developers are going to, I think, look at this and say, right, in spirit, as a developer of games, a player of games, this is really good. But they will then think about the currently broken funding model of video games, which is completely biased towards publishers, is completely biased against developers, and they will be fearful. And in their fear, they may lash out a bit, right? They may be worried because it's their livelihood. But bad things have to stop, and a company that cannot keep to its promises should go under. At the top of this video, I highlighted that other changes Valve made have very much been responding to things. I mean,
its
hell,
transition.
you can take a look at Steam's industry-leading refund
Need to update
policy.
mine.
That happened because
that
of
was smooth.
Australia. So I suppose for once in video games, thanks Australia. Because if you're an Australian gamer, there was a long time where if you wanted an 18 rated game, the government weren't going to let you have it. But on reflection, what I said at the start of this video isn't actually right. There is no outside force from a big authority. No government saying, no senator getting up in, I don't know, the Senate and saying, season passes are messing up gamers. That's not happening. While it's not coming from an authority, Valve absolutely are motivated by an external force. And that external force is bad behavior. And do you know what matters here? It's not a slap in the wrist.
Because Gabe
It's
isn't
a
just a
clear
CEO, he's an actual
financial
gamer.
Punishment. I don't
This
know
is
if
shit
this turn
that
of phrase
bothers him.
exists in your country, but you know, we would over here in Northern Ireland call someone a bit of a chancer, you know, if they were sort of wheeling and dealing, you know, being a wee bit cheeky. Publishers have often been like that. They've been planning to sell you something and taking the money early, and they don't always deliver, or it's not always the spec. That's damaged the hobby that we love, and it has normalized bad behavior, such that soon
He's not
people
wrong.
will just expect shit. They will expect to be treated badly. That has
Yeah, I have gone on and on and on about the normalization of certain business practices. This is why I argued as fucking adamantly as I fucking argued with the goddamn Warframe community with the well, you can just ignore it, you don't have to buy it, why don't you leave it? Because you're normalizing the behavior. And when you normalize the behavior, Jesus Christ, I can't believe this has to be explained. When you normalize the behavior, then it makes it easier to manipulate people and sell it in the future. And that's why it's a bad business practice that shouldn't happen. You don't want to normalize that behavior so that now you're basically grooming your audience so that when they log into a game, the first thing they're going to do is go check the shop. They're going to go check the shop. That's the first thing that they're going to do. That behavior of wanting to spend money on a game, and I'm not talking about free-to-play games. They do that with every game. The normalization of that behavior of I'm going to expect to spend more money after spending my money. And that's what the devs want. They want you to be trained to spend that money, to constantly be spending that money. It's something I've complained about forever and needs to stop. So I'm glad to see Valve taking, I don't know how big a step this is going to be towards changing the normalization of behavior, because that's the problem, is like gamers don't just you don't just normalize it. You normalize it to the point that they defend it, like they do with Warframe. And then they scream about how good the community is as their example of of all of this being a good thing, because hey, the devs are communicating with us, they're our friends. Like, they're not your friend. They're not your fucking friends. This is what it looks like when a company is actually acting in your best interest and trying to be your friend. This is what that looks like. Because Gabe actually is a gamer who spends most of his time gaming, and when he gets sick of something, he changes it on his platform and tries to make sure it goes away. This is what it looks like when your best interests are actually in heart, and they're not just trying to sell you something. That's what all of Warframe's live streams are. It's just all grooming the audience. It's all hyping up stuff they're going to sell. It's all, like getting you excited for the game, and then encouraging you to promote the game. And you're just a little salesman for them. They're not your friend. So anyway, continue on.
It's got to end. And the only way to make it end is clear financial punishment. This will lose devs money, it will lose publishers money, and I am happy about that, actually. I think it is good. And that's going to piss people off. But the point is pretty damn clear. Incentives matter, delivery matters, execution matters.
Money talks.
At the end of the day, if you plan to sell a video game with a season pass, and then you cock up the video game and you cock up the season pass, you know what? The market should punish you such that you may actually go under. Because that's the entire goddamn
That's what would
point.
happen anywhere else.
Should die. Because all they are doing is trading, surviving off bad behavior, what I suppose economists might call like rent-seeking behavior, or the sort of thing where, if you've ever heard of the concept of an unpriced negative externality, that is the shit that they thrive on. That's what my spirit, my soul says. But I'm also a pragmatist, right? There is another incentive here. You know the way sometimes you design a system to incentivize a certain behavior, but you can accidentally have the opposite effect? Well, publishers may end up having a choice here. Do they release a broken DLC for money? Money, of course, that they've, probably already taken because it's a season pass. Will they just put that out to hit Valve's deadline, to dodge Valve's, refunds and stuff, saying, okay, if we don't release this DLC, a massive amount of refunds will happen, and we'll be in a lot of trouble. Or do we just shoot it out right now, accept that we're going to get shit reviews, but you know what? That's fine. Because they already bought the season pass, and if we put out some slop, it'll be slop, but at least it will comply with the letter of the law, if not the spirit.
That's the thing that I worry about.
I absolutely can't wait to see the ramifications.
They'll just start trying to
and
game the
next,
system.
I have another video for you, right? FromSoft. Sony want to purchase the company that owns 70% of FromSoft shares. It is a gargantuan story. It's actually one where the leaks have been confirmed, and I think it matters to all of us because this is the Elden Ring developer, the Armored Core developer. If something bad happens to them, it would truly be a loss. So check it out next. Thanks to today's sponsor, and I'll see you over there.
Oh, they're gonna get bought.
I don't know. Maybe.
Unless they just decide not to sell, like, they're gonna get bought.
They're a Japanese company, and here's the thing. Japanese companies are notoriously prideful. Yeah, Japanese companies are notoriously prideful, and they had the chance to buy this company, like, back during Demon Souls, when they were hurting, and Demon Souls was kind of a sleeper hit. It wasn't an immediate success. It took a while for that game to take off. So FromSoft, or their parent company, I forget which one, but they offered to sell to Sony. They offered to sell them, you know, to get bought. They were trying to get bought because they were struggling at the time, and they were like, hey, you know, you can buy us and we'll work for you. Sony had no interest in them at the time. None. Now they do, now that they've been a success. So Nope. I need to hold on. I need to redo this real quick.
I didn't believe in you when you were sucking, but now that you're doing, now that you're all bossed up on that purple Sprite.
Yeah, and they have had some bad blood during the time of Dark Souls because they basically said, well, then we'll just remake the game. Because Sony wanted to keep the IP but didn't want to buy the company. They thought, oh, well, you'll just keep making this game for us and we don't have to buy you. We can just keep getting the product because you guys don't have a choice. You don't have any other, you know, companies to work for. Like, we're it. And in reality, they weren't it. They ended up, you know, basically just recreating Demon Souls with a new name, called it Dark Souls, put it on Xbox, and it fucking took the fuck off and sold like gangbusters. And there was kind of some bad blood between them for a while there, if I remember right. Like, I think Sony offered to buy them once before maybe. And it was either Sony tried to buy them or they tried to buy the name Demon Souls back from Sony and Sony wouldn't sell it to them. Yeah, like, it's... If they don't sell to Sony, it'll be a pride thing. It'll be a Sony will come to them, which they're doing, and say, hey, I want to buy you now, you know, and you can start making games for us again. And they're going to be like, nah, we're good. You didn't buy us when you had the chance. It's kind of the same thing Bungie did, where they wouldn't be bought by Microsoft. They wouldn't be bought by Activision. They had this whole, like, pride thing. And then once they started hurting as a company, they sold to PlayStation. So I don't think From Software is hurting right now, though. If they're not hurting and they can keep making stuff on their own under their rules, because once you sell, then you have to abide by what they say. So that could be more important than the money. The freedom to make what we want and publish it where we want could be more important, and actually probably be more profitable depending on how good their product is than selling their company. But I also don't know how much money Sony's offered them or is willing to put down for it. So yeah, that the number of zeros behind that thing could make all the difference. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But that guy's videos was good. Bellular News. Spelled like it sounds, Bellular. You guys want to check out his page? He's got a pretty good setup for news. I tried doing gaming news once, and I don't want to like dedicate myself to a gaming news show. But, you know, I'll react to some major headlines and stuff here. But yeah, if you want to keep in the know for the gaming news, I can honestly say I'm recommending him long before I'm going to recommend Angry Joe and his gaming news show, because his gaming news show kind of sucks. This guy seems to be way more well-informed than Angry Joe, so go give him a sub. And if you like this video and this channel, you know, sub here. it's more about the live streams than the videos here. We live stream. All these videos are recorded live, and we do these live streams nightly at around 11 p.m. So be sure to check out the channel and come be part of these videos. We react to things. We play video games. We have a good time. Thanks for watching.